The book of Exodus begins with the announcement that Jacob and his household, including his 11 sons, are moving to Egypt. 11 sons, as Joseph was already living there. So, the children of Israel, total of 70 people, are moving to Egypt. And the Bible tells us that it was a successful relocation. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. Somehow, we as Jews are successful in foreign countries. We manage well there. We multiply. We are leading in many areas in economy, culture, science. We are the catalysts of success for the nation we live in till we succeed a little too much. And the locals begin to look at us with growing jealousy and suspicion. The most important factor in our success, not only today, but in any time and any place in history, is family. In our culture, family is the most important thing. And at least once a week, on Friday nights, the entire family gathers together around the table, often with friends and relatives. In addition to family, we highly value education and knowledge. Others would say that we are talented as inventors and we are quick to adapt. I personally see the hand of God working through our nation. It is faith in God that guides Jacob and his sons. And all the generations after, till today actually, is the Word of God. On a practical level, it means high moral standards, loyalty, honesty, and righteousness. Growing up, Joseph learned all these qualities, and later they became the foundation of his success. And it is written, all that he did prosper in his hands. As Jews, God's Torah and its principles are installed in us, and it leads us to success and prosper. Now, this is true for every person who planted himself in the Word of God. He is like a tree planted by the streams of water. He will prosper in all he does. For this reason, Israel's army is considered the most humane, and we all, regardless of our political views, seek peace and harmony in the region. Nobody among our people wants war and bloodshed. Not one. However, we understand that the need for self-defense is very real. A good soldier acts out of self-defense. And our army is founded on the principles of the Torah, which sanctifies life. That is why our army is obligated to minimize unnecessary destruction and collateral damage. It is because of our belief in the sanctity of life. No local child will dare stand in front of a Syrian, Iraqi, or Lebanese tank and throw stones in its direction. But a Palestinian kid does it in front of an Israeli tank, knowing that he is not in danger because of our soldiers' moral standards. Terrorist organizations in Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon often use so-called human shields when they place their rocket launchers or command centers in the heart of civilian neighborhoods, near schools or hospitals. It proves their own belief in the Israeli army morality. Otherwise, the use of human shields would be pointless. I am proud of our army. On the one hand, we are here to defend our home and to stop terrorists. On the other hand, we maintain the sanctity of life and the purity of the weapons principles. Back to Egypt. Again, it is Jacob's sons' belief in God, in their faith, that leads them to prosper. They grow and they multiply till the land is filled by them. We read about the growth happening in Egypt, in a foreign country. And we remember that in the Promised Land, birth was hard. And nearly all of our mothers were barren. And every birth of a child had a special purpose and a meaning. Every child was unique. And suddenly, in Egypt, we are filling the land. The children of Israel dwell in the region of Goshen, a fruitful and prosperous land. They procreate and multiply and fill the land. And the children of Israel hold key possessions in the Egyptian administration. As it is said, the land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best parts of the land. And if you know of any among them with special ability, put them in charge of my own livestock. Many years passed since the time of Joseph. I'm saying many years because it took time for Jacob's sons to grow and become a nation. And now, a new Pharaoh came to rule Egypt. And he wants to appease and satisfy his people. I think that the average Egyptian citizen, like an average person elsewhere, was discontent and unhappy about his financial status and economic challenges. In Israel, we complain about the financial situations. Americans also complain about their economy. It is also true about people in Europe and in Asia who complain about their economy as well. So the Egyptians are also unhappy, and they are jealously watching the Israelites, the sons of Jacob, thinking, why do they have it? Why do they assume important positions? Where is their wealth coming from? They are stealing it from us and from our children. They, the Egyptians, want to take their wealth back. The official excuse was that the Israelis became an existential threat to Egypt, as if in the time of war they will join Egypt's enemies and attack Egypt from within. The Egyptians do not want to admit the real reason for their hostility, which is the jealousy of the Israelites' property, possessions, and successes. So instead, they claim that the Israelites had become a security risk, that they are a clear and immediate danger to the country. But the first step taken by the Egyptians reveals the truth. They impose tax collectors upon the children of Israel. Taxation is a financial harm, and it reveals to us the real reason for Pharaoh's fear and for his people's fear. Envy of the Israelites' financial success. Why do these foreigners have so much property which should belong to us and to our children? Pharaoh continues to hurt us financially, as it is written in verse 11. So they put slave masters over them. Additionally, Pharaoh oppressed the children of Israel with forced labor, thinking that physical and spiritual exhaustion of the Israelites will lead to the decline in their natural fertility. But it did not work. And the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. Pharaoh's original plan leads to the opposite results. And instead of the decline of Israel population, it is growing. And the problem, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, becomes real. The sons of Jacob continue to multiply, and now they are angry. They feel exploited by the Egyptian. The problem and the countermeasures are growing like a snowball. So then Pharaoh gives a secret instruction to the famous midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. We know that this order is secret because no family will invite a midwife whose orders are to kill the baby. Pharaoh's plan is to secretly control the number of born babies and control in this way the growing demographic problem. The midwives didn't obey Pharaoh's command. And why not? Is it because of their profession to help life and not to take a life? Was it their motherly instinct to protect the helpless newborn babies? The Torah emphasizes that they saved babies because they feared God. Their faith in God made the midwives help the Hebrews. Not only they abstained from causing harm, but the Torah tells us that they actively helped and saved Hebrew babies. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. The Bible continues and tells us that their actions were rewarded by God. There's a Jewish commentary, a midrash, saying that because of righteous women, we were saved from Egyptian slavery. It reflects the events of our Torah portion. While Pharaoh and the Egyptians are trying to destroy and eliminate the sons of Jacob, several women joined forces to oppose them and to save lives. And by their actions, they saved the entire nation of Israel. After the heroic deeds of the two midwives, we get to Yocheved and Miriam, Moses' mother and sister, who also actively opposed Pharaoh in order to save life. Last on this list is Pharaoh's daughter, who saved and raised Moses as her own son. The Midrash continues saying that there were many other women in that generation who actively worked towards Israel's salvation. And because of those righteous women, Israel was redeemed from Egypt. Our Torah portion emphasizes the deeds of the women who are proactive in reaching their goal. This brings us to a common debate in the Messianic community. What is more important, faith or deeds? I think it is an impossible question. But if I'm really forced to choose one over the other, I would say faith. But the truth is that they are inseparable. They are connected and stand together. In Matthew chapter 22, Yeshua was asked, "What is the greatest commandment of all?" Yeshua answers, saying that there are not one, but two greatest commandments. Love the Lord your God, and also love your neighbor as yourself. These two commandments are intertwined, and it is impossible to separate them. Similar to Yeshua's answer, I think that the believer has to live the life of faith, has to implement his faith. The two come together. The parable of the two houses built on the rock and on the sand is one of the most famous of Yeshua's parables. It is found in Matthew chapter 7. The introduction to this parable is in verse 21. And it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." Yeshua's focus is not on the believer who says, "Lord, Lord," but on him who does the will of my Father. Now, I'd like to explain my line of thought. Faith is our starting point. Our faith in God, in His Word, and in Yeshua the Messiah, that is the foundation. Yeshua is the foundation. Through Him, we receive our salvation. Salvation comes through Yeshua the Messiah. We cannot buy or earn our salvation through actions. Yeshua is the key, and He is the way to our salvation, not our deeds. However, as believers, we are called to the life of righteousness. We are required to show that our faith is active in our lives. What I am trying to say is that Yeshua is the way and the life. We have to go through Yeshua. But Yeshua requires us to produce fruits from our faith. He asks us a life of faith and deeds. We are asked to be a light to our surroundings. We are required to have personal integrity and high moral standards, to help others and to serve as an example to those around us. And then Yeshua tells us a parable about two similar houses, one built on the sand and the other on the solid rock. The one who built his house on the sand wanted to save effort, to go easy on himself. He did not want to work hard and to chisel through the rock. So he found a soft foundation for his house. The other fella, who built a similar house on the rock, worked hard. He carved and chiseled the rock and carefully built its foundation on a solid surface. Then came winter, and with it, rains and storms. The house built on the rock stood firmly on its solid foundation. But the one built on sand was completely destroyed by the storm because it didn't have a strong foundation. The sand under it was washed out by the water, and the house collapsed. What does Yeshua want to teach us by this parable? He who built his house on the sand is like a person who hears Yeshua's words but does not act on them, does not do what is required, does not work hard on self-improvement, on chiseling away the old self. And the one whose house stands on the rock, therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. He who hears and puts it into practice fulfills the Word of God. When our life principles are built upon the Word of God, when we let it guide us through life and influence our actions, we will be blessed and we will succeed in all we do. I think that is the real secret of our success as a nation. And this is the secret of the Israeli army, when we live our lives according to the Word of God. Next week, we will taste the beginning of God's redemption, the beginning of the 10 plagues. Till then, Shabbat Shalom.